final of the French Open tennis tournament. That's coming up at the top of the hour right here on France 24. Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate. We're going inside Ukraine, where our East Europe correspondent Gulliver Cragg filed a report that we saw in part one for Reporters, the France 24 investigative news magazine. Gulliver Cragg, who joins us. How are you, sir?
Good evening.
Also with us, Andrij KARASHCHUK of Kiev's Institute of International Relations at National Taras Shevchenko University. Thank you for joining us from the Ukrainian capital. And in our studios, let's welcome back Anton KOSLOV of the American Graduate School and George-Frederick JEWSBURY of EHESS, the Higher School of Social Studies based here in Paris. Thank you for all of you gentlemen for being back with us. Gulliver, we saw the report in part one. We reacted to it. You're the correspondent for both Poland and Ukraine, which happened to be the co-hosts for Euro 2012. Mm-hmm. Just before the break, Anton KOSLOV was talking about how Ukraine is a nation that you can't really put into a category. How different, though, are Poland and Ukraine?
Poland and Ukraine are hugely different. I think that they are the sort of two extremes of communist transition in that post-communist transition in that part of the world. At the moment, Poland is very much being portrayed as the country that's got everything right, didn't have a recession during the economic crisis, has stable government, and is a fully fledged member of the European Union, while Ukraine, sadly, after the sort of flowering of democracy with the 2004 Orange Revolution, democracy in Ukraine seems to be under threat. While Poland has made huge progress in stamping out corruption, corruption in Ukraine is still ruling the roost.
Threat, but those activists, they spoke to the camera to you. Was it difficult convincing people to talk to you, like those workmen who said they'd been ripped off?
The activists were extremely keen to talk to the camera, but I think at the moment they're still a very small formation that the authorities see as relatively harmless. The builders, the construction workers, also some of them in their report, that's not their real names because they didn't want to give their real names. They were very happy to talk to us and full of complaints until we started pointing a camera at them, and then they were afraid to not get paid or even to get beaten up. They were generally very trepidatious about speaking on television.
We've seen that political passions run high. We were mentioning it at the outset in Ukraine. They came to blows in Parliament 2 weeks ago over a law allowing Russian and other minority languages in public institutions. There were demonstrations last week over those over the disagreement over that. At the eve of the tournament, let me ask you this question. Andrij KARASHCHUK, how divided is Ukraine?
How divided is Ukraine? It's a great question. Good evening. And I will begin by the latest which I heard, actually. You see, concerning the flourishing of democracy, or so-called democracy during so-called Orange Revolution in Ukraine, it's a real idle proposition, as you see, because during the so-called Orange Revolution, there was no democracy in Ukraine, because democracy was replaced by governing of pro-oligarchical rulers of Ukraine, which was recognized as Democrats in Western countries, as United States and in Europe. And actually, we are capable to say that it's not a real democracy, because real democracy is a power for the people of Ukraine, but not the policy for the American geostrategic interest against Russia. So it's the first thing. Second one, that actually Ukraine is not split with this dilemma to support or not Tymoshenko, because it's not the topic which are discussed in Ukraine. You see, you just said that it's a language question which was discussed and takes the first place among the old journals, among the old politicians actually in Ukraine, because it's a right of people to speak their own language. You see, in the Washington city, in the New York, I saw the people who spoke in Spanish with without any problem. So many journals, so many inscriptions in the streets, etc., etc. They are really free to speak in their own language. This is why not Ukraine, which it's split it in the culture, because it's our roots, which as I'm from Poltava region, for example, and from Poltava region it's a Gogol, which actually recognizes the Russian writer, but he is Ukrainian.
But the reality of origin. Is that people do speak Russian.
Not this. Ukraine is not split. It's politicians' souls which trying to split Ukraine, because Ukraine's first aim is to build up democracy, and so-called revolution. It was not a democracy, and actually we are struggling for the democracy. We are struggling in order to pass this. Arrogance of politicians who took their governing position during so-called revolution.
All right, so we see passions are running high. George-Frederick JEWSBURY, at the end of that report, you saw of Gulliver's report, you saw people saying, again, that it's a good idea to have Euro 2012, and that a lot of hopes from a lot of different corners for a lot of different reasons. Mm-hmm. Even you heard there... Andrij KARASHCHUK mentioned Yulia Tymoshenko. Even she is for Euro 2012 going forward. Nobody's calling for a boycott inside Ukraine.
No, not at all. But I'd like to pose the question to our colleague in Kiev. What is the Ukrainian nation at that point? What is it to be Ukrainian?
Andrij KARASHCHUK, what does it mean to be Ukrainian? Oh, we have a technical issue with...
he's there.
I would like to respond to two of the things that Andrij KARASHCHUK said, which is clearly the democracy that there was in Ukraine after the Orange Revolution, so-called, wasn't a perfect democracy, but it did have the merit of Yulia Tymoshenko losing the presidential election and leaving power when she lost the election, which is sort of step one of respecting democracy. And on the language issue, for Russian-speaking Ukrainians to suggest that they are prevented from speaking Russian is rubbish. Most people in Ukraine speak Russian. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't a case for it being made an official language, but I don't think that that people are being prevented in their daily lives from speaking Russian.
The British tabloids have been very vociferous when it comes to Ukraine. They haven't been exactly ambassadors for the country these past weeks. They warned, for instance, UK citizens of colour to stay away amid fears of racist attacks. Sunday Telegraph says that might be overstated and that the euro, again, is an opportunity, quoting the head of a Black Person Association saying that Ukrainians would give you their last piece of bread, but they haven't had much contact with foreigners. And as they get more contact, they're starting to understand that foreigners are not their enemies. These championships could change many things for us. Anton, KOSLOV, your thoughts on that?
Well, first I would like to make a little remark about Tymoshenko leaving the office once she lost. I think it is important to keep in mind that she wouldn't have a chance to stay even if she wanted to, to use whatever, the military or the police, because Ukraine is not a authoritarian centralized system. You have to keep that in mind. You do have a system when you have different networks have to negotiate with one another and share power. Some networks become more powerful and then try to destroy this, opposing networks and vice versa. But it is not like in Russia. When you have Putin, you have a Federal Security Service, and basically they are able to control all political dissent. And even there, in that case, it is not that clear cut. So I would like to say that this is something